Hey, mysterious fellows. Ready for today's story? Get cozy and be ready for the odd adventure ahead. See you on the other side. The Conjuring, the Silent Visitor. It was an ordinary evening in the Perron household. The air had a slight chill to it, and the wind rustled the trees outside their rural Rhode Island home. The family had just settled into their nightly routine, the children getting ready for bed, while Carolyn and Roger were finishing up some work in the living room. But something wasn't right. Carolyn felt it first, a strange sensation, like being watched. It wasn't just the feeling of eyes upon her, it was cold, unnerving, as if the very air around her was thickening, pressing in. "Roger, do you feel that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Roger didn't respond right away. He was absorbed in his papers, but when he finally looked up at her, he could see the concern in her eyes. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice light but curious. "I don't know. Just a feeling. It's like the house. It's different." Carolyn frowned, rubbing her arms as if trying to ward off an unseen chill. "It's cold." Roger stood and walked over to her, trying to reassure her. "It's probably just the weather. The wind's picking up outside. It's making the house creak. You know how these old houses are." But Carolyn wasn't convinced. She knew something was wrong. The children, too, had started to notice. Andrea, their eldest daughter, mentioned hearing strange noises from the basement. Cindy said she saw a shadow moving behind the curtains, even though the house was empty. But it was April, their youngest, who first felt the full weight of the house's malevolent presence. One night, as Carolyn tucked April into bed, the little girl's eyes widened in terror. "Mommy, there's someone in the room," she whispered, pointing to the corner of the bedroom. "Someone standing in the dark." Carolyn's heart skipped a beat. There was nothing there, but the dread was palpable. It was then that the family began to realize this wasn't just a figment of their imagination. Something was in the house, something that didn't belong. The unseen forces. Things quickly escalated. Objects would move on their own. Heavy furniture would shift, and the doors, no matter how securely shut, would swing open. The basement, once a place the children loved to explore, became a place of nightmares. The constant creaking, the footsteps they would hear at night, the flickering lights. It was all adding up. Carolyn couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At night, she would wake up to the sound of whispers, low and guttural, coming from the walls themselves. It sounded like a chant, an ancient language, and it filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. Desperate, Carolyn and Roger reached out for help. They called in Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators, hoping that their expertise would bring answers. The Warrens arrived at the house, sensing immediately that something was terribly wrong. Lorraine, the sensitive, felt the darkness pressing against her from the moment she stepped inside. She looked around, her eyes darting to the corners of the room, the dim lighting casting long shadows on the walls. "This house is haunted by something evil," Lorraine said softly, her voice tense. "The spirits here are not at peace. This is no ordinary haunting. It's pushed." Ed Warren, always the more analytical one, examined the house with his tools, setting up cameras and recording devices. As he moved through the rooms, his heart sank. He had seen hauntings before, but this was different. It was hostile. The Warrens performed a seance, hoping to communicate with whatever entity was causing the disturbances. The family gathered around the table, their hands trembling as they gripped the planchette. It moved slowly at first, spelling out words, and then, all at once, it flew across the board, slamming into the edge of the table. Lorraine gasped. "It's angry. Whatever it is, it wants to hurt you." As the temperature in the room plummeted, the family watched in horror as the planchette moved again, spelling out a chilling message. "Leave now." But it was too late. The entity wasn't about to let them go that easily. The final confrontation. That night, the spirits became more aggressive. Shadows grew larger, more menacing. The walls seemed to close in around them. Carolyn, in a moment of sheer terror, was possessed by the spirit of Bathsheba Sherman, the original owner of the land, the spirit of a woman who had died under mysterious, violent circumstances, leaving behind a deep hatred for anyone who dared to live on her property. The family could do nothing but watch as Carolyn's eyes went cold, her voice no longer her own. She began to choke, her body convulsing as Bathsheba took control. Ed and Lorraine acted quickly. With the help of a local priest, they performed an exorcism, risking their own lives to save the Perron family. The struggle was intense. Carolyn screamed, her voice changing, contorting with rage and malice, but the Warrens held strong. Ed shouted prayers, while Lorraine, using all her psychic strength, focused on the entity, urging it to leave. With one final, blood-curdling scream, Bathsheba's presence was banished. The house fell silent. The family was saved. But the experience had left its mark. Carolyn, Roger, and their children would never forget the horrors they had faced in that house. But as they left the Perron home for good, Ed and Lorraine Warren knew that the evil hadn't disappeared. It was merely waiting for its next victim. The end. What do you think happened? Who was it? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay mysterious. Goodbye.